Thank you so much for taking some time to join our caregiver TMRG kickoff call. It was kind of late last minute because we got our Google group all organized. Otherwise, I'd have to manually add 50 emails or so to that distribution list. So I'll go ahead and drop the agenda in our chat and we can get started. So as a quick introduction, my name is Jackie Porter. I'm a director of product, and I am a co-lead. Gina Schwam is the executive business assistant over the product organization. She's also a co-lead. We are really excited to get this Caregivers TMRG up and running. I did link a deck inside of the agenda to kind of give an overview of what the purpose of this TMRG is. And I'll share my screen just to give you a couple of slides for some context here. So the idea of this TMRG is to help us build a community in GitLab to make parents-to-be, caregivers, and family life allies to feel like they have a place to share and to network together. I think being a caregiver is an interesting challenge, especially when it comes to work-life balance. And I'm definitely of the age right now where I have children and parents that are aging, and I'm sandwiched between this caregiving world that can be really hard to balance. And it's nice to have a space with like-minded people. As we start to think about what we want to take care of in fiscal year 24, there's a couple of pillars that we're going to start driving forward. The first one is this idea of peer support, where we're trying to build a community between other caregivers and allies here at GitLab. The next is this theme of company support, where we want GitLab to be more supportive of parents and caregivers, and shape company policy so that they can better reflect that value of friends and family first. This other pillar is around driving awareness. We want to make sure that we're promoting the TMRG throughout the hiring cycle as new people are joining, but also throughout GitLab, so that people understand that there's a place where they can belong as a caregiver. And then lastly is this idea of retaining our caregivers. Being a caregiver is hard. There's some metrics here in this deck where I line out some of the challenges that are related to being a caregiver, and absenteeism or presentism, and what it means for being a caregiver and balancing work life. That's the introduction and a brief walkthrough of what we're hoping to accomplish from a vision standpoint. The next agenda item, is there any questions? I don't see anyone adding any items in the agenda, so I'm just going to keep talking. Okay. And then hopefully we'll pass it all over to you to answer some questions, because I do have some questions at the end to kind of listen to what you all want to have this TMRG be as a caregiver. And as a disclaimer, I know sometimes when people come in hot, a lot of energy, it feels like there's not a discussion or a dialogue. You don't know me yet, but you will. Super open. I have strong opinions, loosely held. So if you want to raise your hand and be like, Jackie, I got an opinion, please stop me. Stop me when I'm on my roll. It's not going to hurt my feelings. From a structure for this TMRG, we have Gina and myself as co-leads. I would love to have 2 more co-leads, specifically if we can get better geographical representation, one in EMEA or APAC, so that way we can have coverage from a meeting perspective, but also creating these local communities of caregivers throughout GitLab. So if you're interested in being a co-lead, definitely write your names in the agenda, and we can kind of talk about what that means from a responsibility standpoint. The more co-leads that we have, which I think 4 is kind of the max that we want, the better distribution of tasks is also there. So that's a really great way to spread the load between 4 people. Under this 2B, I mentioned those 4 pillars that we have. We're also interested in having a subcommittee lead, where you would be in charge of running the program for each of those pillars. I think that's a lighter weight effort. So if you're particularly passionate about one of these topics, whether that's retaining caregivers or you want to improve our benefits from a caregiver perspective, definitely put your name there. We'll do a Google form and get more formal invitation, for those different roles in the Slack channel as we go forward with this year. Okay, any questions so far? I can type while you talk. All right, super. Point three, cadence. So right now we have a monthly meeting. It's only in one time slot, which is like US and kind of EMEA friendly. I would love for us to incorporate alternating time zones, but wanted to kind of see the geographical distribution of this group and if that made sense. Any strong opinions from this team on what you think works best, what you've seen work best?
Jackie, I'm trying not to, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm trying not to be the first one to speak, but being that we have multiple meetings and with multiple TMRGs, it seems to work best if we do like an 8:30 Pacific time, which then helps for our EMEA friends. And then somewhere around 4, 3:30 or 4, that's about 8:30 or 9 if we're talking Sydney, right? Time frame or Australia, kind of in that. I don't know if there's a better mix, but that seems to have worked and we get pretty decent representation across all regions doing it at that time.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you for weighing in there. If there's any other thoughts from people that's from you seeing time zones and meetings work, please let us know. Okay, awesome. So to the fun part, I have 2 questions. I want to learn a little bit more about you all and kind of what you're hoping to get out of this TMRG. So this first one, what are you hoping to get out of this caregivers group? Alana, I see that you've written something down.
Yeah, so I'm in the parenthood channel, and it's awesome because I feel like I've asked questions. People post pictures of their eyes half open, which has been super, super nice to have. But I think, Jackie, to your point, there's more there can be more to caregiving. There can be like your spouse, there can be like parents, and you can be sandwiched kind of in the middle of that. So I'm hoping for something similar, but maybe in a little bit more formal sense in the parenthood channel. So camaraderie, resources, ideas, and then just getting to know. I'm seeing like a lot of new faces, getting to know more people at GitLab. And so just broadening that community.
I love it. When you think about resources, what is something that you feel like you would like to see more of from a resources perspective?
I think I'm looking forward to what's coming up on April 11th, just a speaker around that's like specifically gauged towards our TMRG.
I'll add a note to the agenda to kind of preview that that speaker and talk a little bit more about it. I'm excited that you're excited because it took a little bit to find the speaker, and after interviewing a couple of different caregiver experts, this one really resonated with me, and watching her demos was really cool. So I'm excited. I'll showcase that a little bit more in this call. Manuel, what do you think?
Yeah, one thing that immediately came to mind when I saw this TMRG forming was that it would be very nice to have more frequent opportunities to hear from other people, their experience, because that always is very helpful. But it usually only happens to me when I vent about something in mental health awareness, and then someone reaches out and then you connect, and it's always great. But wouldn't it be good to have these moments without first being frustrated enough to vent about something?
I agree. I would love for there to be a space, a safe place where people who are caregiving can come and be like, hey, I'm really having a hard time with X. What have you seen that work? And then you have a community that can give you those places. I've seen it work in parenthood that way too. But I would also love to see lots of pictures of your family. So we need to get like a stream of just sharing. So I love that idea. That's perfect. Thank you. Regnard.
Oh, it's Renard.
Oh, Renard, sorry.
No worries. So it's really more about the getting more help. So I'm in I'll be in the parenting side. So I have 4 kids. So I'm coming from that point where, given we're working at a remote, all remote company where work life and your home life really often collide, I feel there's more to explore, especially in making things more manageable. A case in point. So for example, if you were in an office, again, this sound might so fundamental, but for example, you have a maintenance or just property managers who will take care of your office for you, so you're not worrying about your place of work, right? Here you're kind of doing kind of both in a way. So those instances, again, not all the time, but they kind of put me specifically in some tough situations. So looking for those ways to find help in those areas. Yeah, but that's it. Yeah.
I love it. Thank you for sharing.
And Jackie, we skipped over, I had put something in the agenda that Manuel was asking about specifically when you're venting, is it more about things that you're going through personally, Manuel, or is it concern that you have around work, like with what Renard just said?
For me, it's very much personal. I'm personally extremely happy with the work aspects of it. I'm almost hiding behind, oh, I can't because of work, when that isn't actually true sometimes.
For that.
Great question. Thank you, Sharita. All right, if there's nothing else on what you're hoping to get out of this TMRG, I'd like to transition to this next question. What do you think is missing at GitLab for caregivers? So Jocelyn, I see you have the first one.
I think two things. One is just like the discussion on topics. Like when I think back to when I first became a parent, or when I was going to first become a parent, I had so many questions. Like, what do you do with your baby? And there's not, like, we have the parenthood channel, but it's more about like, hey, here's what my life is like when I've only had like 6 hours of sleep scattered throughout the night, right? Like, and it's not so much about like, it's not a forum for like preparedness. And then Jackie, like as you mentioned, right, like there's also like parents and there's spouses, and I think sometimes we have a lot of questions about like, hey, when might be a time to think about when to get like additional help, or what additional resources might be available. And so I think like I would love to see like, I think more discussion around that, like to kind of help us all like through some of the tough times, instead of like us having to, seek out whoever we can find in our own immediate circles to say like, hey, like this, taking care of my mom is getting really difficult. Here's what's going on. What do you think I should do? And so I think just having more of that open dialogue. And then the other thing is maybe like care packages for caregivers. At Amazon, like that's something that the groups would periodically do. Like, and I remember when racism was kind of like a really big topic for a while, the moms group actually sent out books that we could give and like read with our kids on racism, right? Like, because that was a topic that people are like, I don't know how to talk to my kids about this. There was the occasional like box of chocolates. And so like, I think that would be just a really nice thing.
Love it. Thank you for that context. Alana, do you want to voice over your support here?
Yeah, I like the idea of caregiver care packages. Sounds awesome. So +1 to that.
And I don't necessarily have to say much, but we usually talk about elderly, we talk about kids, but I'd love some hacks around preteens and teens because their schedules, especially if you have a child that plays sports, is extensive. And then place on top of that work, place on top of that caring for an elderly parent, or if you have younger kids as well. So any hacks that anyone has would also be appreciated.
Yay, I love that. Matt.
Hi. Yeah, I don't know. I'm maybe not sure if this is the right place, but a lot of the discussion seems to be about like elder care and kids. So I don't know if maybe this is going to fall in this TMRG's wheelhouse, but what I was hoping to get out of it would be that we would, get some allyship from our benefits team when it comes to fighting for things like insurance coverage. It's kind of every year there's a minimum of one massive fight with insurance to get everything done. And then there's, the periodic battles through the year to get things done. Just to get folks what they need to live. So that's something that I know at previous jobs I've had to like call in our benefits team at various points to go through our insurance broker and to really get someone to advocate for us, to get us through some of the insurance denials or things. So that's something I'm hoping that this TMRG would maybe develop with our benefits team.
Vishal, I see that you've +1. Do you want to voice over anything?
Yeah, I think Matt kind of summarized it quite well. But for locations like India, the insurance partner that we have is we don't have any middle person from GitLab or from Global Upside. It's directly to the insurance company, and everyone knows it's not really pleasant experience to deal with them, even when your case is really straightforward. I unfortunately had an instance where I had to deal with them in my previous company, but it was very smooth. The company, I had to only talk to the HR in my company. They would take care, not even take care, but just help with the process of working with the insurance company. And honestly, as a youngster, it's kind of intimidating to just deal with the insurance company, especially when it's your first time. It was my first time, so it was really intimidating at that point in time. So maybe I don't know about allyship, maybe guidance on how to deal with that, or anything related to it, to be honest. I think that would be a very good outcome, at least for me.
Yeah, so to give you, Matt, you had a question, is this the forum for it? Yes, this is exactly what I envisioned under our pillar of company support. I want us to start improving these experiences for caregivers and people who have challenges managing insurance and company benefits. And Vishal, you made a really great comment about how you don't have an intermediate today. So us providing an easy to access resources or guides or a place or a DRI that you can ping for questions, I think is all a helpful place that we can definitely incorporate into that charter. Sharita.
So the other thing that I think could be beneficial, at least for me to understand, is when we're thinking about overall underrepresented groups, this is one that I consider, and I think it's critical for us as a goal to look at retention. Although you don't actually self-identify in this space like you would with disabilities or underrepresented ethnicities or gender, I still consider this an underrepresented group. And so how do we retain? And one of those things are return to work, reentry to work, whatever you want to say. If you're caring for an adult or a child or anything in between, sometimes there's not a strategy or a process for your work to be covered. And just because we're remote, sometimes you have to take extensive amounts of time off. So really trying to look at, are there processes that we could put in place to help with reentry, with coverage? One of the things I've seen at my previous jobs is we had it, but what ended up happening is you didn't necessarily have someone that covered your full-time job, right? You had people that pitched in from the team and then they were exhausted. And so it's really trying to make sure that we have, or one of the long-term things that we look at is just what would our potential process be if there are extensive periods of time where people are, and of course there's leave of absence, et cetera, but it might be a little bit of a tweak that we look at for this particular area.
Perfect. Wonderful. Alana, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah. So when I initially read this, I thought what happens when you come back to work? And so in addition to everything that you just said, I think also having options for coming back in a different capacity than maybe you were in previously before you were on leave, and if maybe it looks different for everyone, but what are, like, is there come back full time? Is there come back part time for X amount of days? Things like that. Having more choices, so it doesn't maybe feel as daunting.
And we had a reentry, partial reentry, part-time reentry, where it kind of worked its way up. But I think that's where the offboarding, or as the person is leaving to do this, having it set in stone before, so that when you come back, I mean, the company can change very quickly. And so just making sure that you've identified it, it's documented, so that when you do come back, there's clarity if potentially things have changed in your organization or something like that. So 100% agree.
One thing that I have seen a previous team here when I was on Configure, when I joined, everyone documented what they called their daily flow. It was just a markdown document that they checked in, and it was just kind of, wasn't like how every day goes, but it was how they figured their average day went, starting from in the morning and what they needed to do before they could start work. And when they needed to take time to go do childcare things or go to doctor's appointments, and like how often those things would happen. So it was kind of like an expectation set with their direct manager. So the thing that occurs to me would be that the coming back would be like a diff to that document, would be a patch that changes some of the things, but it would be like a starting point to see like, okay, what are we coming back to, and how does it look different, just to expectation set. I know with my manager that helped us like playing capacity, for instance.
Yeah. I think it's a really good idea, Matt. What this is sort of jogging in my mind is, like, as a part of our caregiver TMRG handbook, we can add these pages that are about these tips, like, different sections, so that people have a place to go to kind of do that resource. Like, one of them could be when you're planning for parental leave, create your daily flow document and make sure that people understand, and then make an edit when you come back. Just providing those tips in one place, I think, could be helpful. Adrian?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so just wanted to reiterate, I agree with everything so far, especially the re-entry piece. I actually, after I had my son, I actually left my previous job, took some time off, and then just started at GitLab in October. And that is when my son first started daycare at about 1.5 years. And so I'm sure everyone's nodding their head, can understand how many times he has been sick that since then. I feel like I have paid for more daycare days that he hasn't been there than he actually has. So yeah, just like some support on how other people have balanced their days. I mean, I'm fortunate enough that both my husband and I work from home, so we can kind of balance the days that he is sick and home with us between both of our schedules. But those days just feel crazy and unproductive at times. And so it's just kind of thinking, do you just take the day off to focus on getting them healthy and kind of work in the evenings, or just open to thoughts and ideas around that. So building a community to support each other, because I know we all definitely go through it, especially if anyone has young kids.
Thank you for sharing and being vulnerable with the balance that you're having to strike. I think I can see even in the comments here that people are like, yes, I feel this. Steve, do you want to voice over your +1 or anything?
Yeah, I totally agree. If this school year seems to have been especially relentless with the sicknesses, it seems. Like looking for that kind of support and understanding and awareness, I think is a big one for me. And like in addition to just having kids homesick, like my situation, my wife is re-entering the workforce at this same time, so it's kind of like we're figuring out how does that even work, and having like trouble of like how do two working parents work, kind of is part of the big topics and subjects that I'm curious for more support and resources on, I suppose.
Perfect. Alana?
So we were all sick in December. I think my daughter tested positive like on a Monday, and then they have 2 weeks off of school. Or like they have 10 days and then school was closed. So I paid for like 2 days of daycare. I paid for the full month, and then she was only there 2 days. And so I was fortunate that my team, I could support me being 100% async. And so I was able to like just focus and like get through everything I needed to get through it, like 2 shifts throughout the day when I was working. And then the rest of the time I was either sick or I was taking care of someone that was sick. And it was hard for sure. But that's kind of how we got through it. And then, you know, we got the flu, RSV in succession quickly after that. So it's unrelenting.
We get through one and then a new one.
Yeah. I'm hoping warmer weather, at least on this hemisphere, will be better. So yeah.
So I'm hearing that the TMRG needs to improve viral loads and the weather. I can work on that. Thank you for sharing all of that, y'all. Jocelyn.
Yeah, I was just gonna say too, right? Like it's not just when I get a phone call from the school, like, oh, I need to go pick them up, and then now I have to figure out what to do the rest of the day. It's there have been times where like I'm sick too, right? Like my kids bring so much stuff home from daycare, especially that first year. I'm pretty sure I was sick the whole year. I don't think I ever actually got better until a year later. And like I remember I had food poisoning. And my son wasn't feeling well, and I'm trying to figure out like, okay, like I have to go to urgent care. Like I'm really struggling right now, but I have a 2-month-old. And so I think some of it is just, you know, knowing that we're not the only ones going through it when we're going through it, but like having good support, I think is huge.
That's super. This is great. Sounds like we're all aligned on the purpose of this and what we hope to accomplish. Renard, I see that you have this comment. We're a little over time, so if anyone needs to drop, feel free. Don't worry about it. I would love to get to your point here around the functions of subcommittees. So this is a good question. Initially, the intent is there to be some level of quarterly planning for events and, you know, opportunities to engage those particular tracks. But we can formalize like what does the workload look like and how it fits. So if you're interested in one of them, definitely put your name there, and then we can kind of talk about what it means from a subcommittee ownership. Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for being interested in this TMRG. I'm excited to share this time with you, and I'll post in the channel more about our caregiver event on April 11th.